In this video, we'll discuss other two parts of speech that are fundamental for your IELTS score, both in writing and speaking. We're going to discuss adjectives and adverbs. We're going to use a specific example. Using this graph, we'll try to break down both adjectives and adverbs. All right, let's start first from adjectives. Let me put them here. Are basically translated into sfat in Uzbek and прилагательные in Russian. And I very much like the translation in Russian because probably it is the closest thing to the real meaning of adjectives. And I'll explain that why. Now, when do we use adjectives and why do we need adjectives? So we use adjectives to give more information or describe nouns. Nouns and only nouns, not verbs and not anything else. We describe only nouns. And in the previous video, we have already broken down what is a noun. So basically, why did I say то, что прилагать is the closest thing? Прилагать is translated into attach. So basically, imagine прикреплять или прилагать какое-то качество к слову, или к какой-то вещи, или к какому-то человеку. Tasavvur qilaylik, qanaqadir sifatni yopishtirib qo'yish, qanaqadir odamga yoki qanaqadir narsaga. And adjectives also, if you look at the origins, in Latin, it's usually translated as attaching or adding something. All right, let's look at the structure here. So this is the meaning, the most important part that you need to focus on. Now, the structure can be a bit different here, but nothing changes. All right, so we use adjectives in two cases. First, before nouns. For example, big man or fast car, right? Let me break it down. I have my adjective here, big, and then I have my noun, man. So this word big describes this man, right? Большой человек, котто адам. All right, or I have fast, and then I have car. So the word fast here describes my noun, car. Right now it's gonna get a bit more complicated because they're not gonna be standing like this together. The other case here would be using adjectives after verbs. Any verbs. Could be state of being verbs like am is are, was were, will be, or any other verbs like become or grow. An example here would be this book. Here, this book, or let's say book is interesting or was interesting. Let's break it down. We have first our noun, then we have verb, and then we have our adjective. And still, the meaning doesn't change. It doesn't mean interesting should describe a word that comes after this. So look at the meaning. When I say interesting, what am I describing? I am still describing book. Don't worry, it doesn't get more complicated than this. This is it. Just make sure you always focus on the meaning and don't get distracted simply by grammar. Now, apart from state of being verbs like am is are, was were, or will be, we can use it with other verbs too. But the set of verbs is not that big. There are not too many verbs we can use adjectives with. Let's say you or I became angry, right? Instead of state of being, I'm using another verb here. The structure is the same. All right, let's break it down the same way. I have my noun here, I, then I have my verb, became, and then I have my adjective, angry. And angry still describes I. It describes me. It doesn't describe the word became or any other word for that matter. But again, right now you gotta be very careful, and I'm gonna show why. A lot of people misuse adjectives to describe verbs, not nouns. For that, I'm gonna use one example from the graph we have. For example, we're going to describe this key feature that the number of openings decreased. Yep, let's put it here. All right, I say the number of closed. Is it closed? No, opened. Sorry. Opened shops decreased. And a lot of people here use adjectives. They say sharp decreased. Let's prove right now using our knowledge uh, to show that this is wrong here. Okay, let's break it down the same way. We'll have the number of open shops, that's one noun or one subject. Then I have, for some reason, adjective. What? We don't have a case here where we use adjective after noun. We have only two cases. This is the first case, before noun, and after verbs. That's it. There's no other case here. So this is fully structurally wrong. Even if we ignore the structure, let's look at the meaning. Then I have verb here. The word sharp here is describing a noun because we said that adjectives describe noun. And maybe you wanted it to describe your verb. You wanted to say that decrease was sharp, not the number of shops, because number of shops cannot be sharp, right? So from both the meaning perspective and the structure perspective, this is fully wrong. You may want to pause the video right now and think what would be the correct version here. Surely, you may want to turn sharp into sharply into adverb, but we didn't talk about adverbs. Right now we're talking only about adjectives. Let's keep the adjective. What do you think? What kind of sentence we should write here so that sharp actually works like an adjective? To do that, we need to turn because we're describing decrease, right? And adjectives describe nouns, meaning that this one should be noun. Right now, we're going to turn this into noun. How do we do this? If you have watched the video, the most important words for trend graphs, that should be easy for you. All right, the number of open shops experienced a sharp decline. You may pause the video and see why this makes sense and why this is correct. I'll break it down. First, I have my noun, the number of shops, and then I have my verb, it experienced, and then I have adjective, a sharp, and then I have one more noun. So we'll have two cases when we put adjectives before nouns or after verbs. Now let's try to see what makes sense here. As I said, if you just look at the structure, you may think that sharp is describing this. But this is not the case. Right now, it's describing decline because decline now has become a noun. Experience a sharp decline. We'll remove this simply because hopefully you understand the meaning of the sentence. But I can also prove grammatically. I'll give you a quick rule here if you're confused, very confused. If you're not confused, this shouldn't be a problem. If you see this case is more important than this case, right? You may want to pause this video and try to understand what did I say just right now. What I mean is, if you have adjective and then you have noun, then this adjective will describe this noun. That's it. It's not gonna go back here. But if you have adjective and you don't have a noun, then it's gonna go back. If it's coming after a verb here, hopefully this should make sense. All right, now let's talk about adverbs. So adverbs, probably the translation is not going to be very useful here because both in Uzbek and Russian classes, people don't usually study adverbs. All right, in Russian, this is usually наречие. If you know this, then you're going to understand this faster. In Uzbek, that would be ravish. All right, so when do we use adverbs? All right, we use adverbs to give additional information or to give more information about verbs, adjectives, That's it. So we can use adverbs to describe both verbs and adjectives. And we're going to look at each case right now. Before we talk about a structure, there is an important information I gotta tell you. How do adverbs work? So adverbs, let me put it here, about the structure. Adverbs are basically adjectives with the ending second li. Usually, not always. There are 100% some exceptions, but like 80%, 90%, this is fully okay. And this is fully okay for our task, writing task one. For example, I have the word slow. This is adjective. Медленный. Second. I put li and it becomes медленно. Second. O'zbek tilida bir xil bo'lar ekan. Sekin. No, gapdagi ma'nosi o'zgaradi. Slowly. All right. Let's say another example here. We have sharp. That becomes sharply. Было резкий, стало резко. All right, now let's talk about the structure here when we basically know how adverbs are formed. Okay, structure. When you want to use adverb to describe a verb here, when describing a verb, you use an adverb after that verb. Let me give you an example. So I say it increased. So my verb is increased in the past sharply. I don't say it sharply increased. I say it increased sharply. Let's break it down. I have my noun, but right now it's not about the noun. Then I have my verb. Then I have my adverb. If this was an adjective, it would describe it if it was an adjective. But fortunately, it's not an adjective, it is adverb. Because it's an adverb, I'm describing the fact that it increased sharply. Ko'tarilishi tez. O'zi tez emasdi, a ko'tarilishi tez. Не он сам быстрый или резкий, а поднимался резко. Поднятие, вот оно было резким. I'm describing a verb here. Hopefully, it should make sense. I can give another example. For example, it fell noticeably. Noticeably. There is a word noticeable. It's adjective. If I put noticeable, I will start describing it, but I don't need this. I want to describe falling, right? Fell. So I say it fell noticeably. Clearly, don't use it before verb, and plus, don't mix adjectives, I mean confuse adjectives with adverbs, and you will be solid with your grammar. All right, I have couple cautions here. This should be more than enough for IELTS writing task 1. But just a precaution, a little warning for your future essays in task 2, maybe you're speaking, is that sometimes, usually, when describing adjectives, because I said we can use adverbs to also describe adjectives. When this happens, you put adverbs before adjectives. Examples here would be, for example, it is small. I have my adjective, and I want to give more information about this adjective. So before this, I put it is extremely small, right? Li. So this is my adverb here. Let me just highlight this. So this is my adverb, and this is my adjective. My adverb describes my adjective, and it stands before it. I'll point out one important thing here. You use adverbs to describe adjectives when making comparisons to make them more obvious, to add more information here. All right. Usually, again, a lot of candidates avoid this, and this is no problem. But to vary your language for a higher score, you may try this. Okay. For example, I have a sentence. It was higher. Let me break it down. I have my noun here, it. I have my verb here, was. And I have my adjective here, higher. I don't have adverb. So higher here describes it. İşte on bu vысокий. Больше balanmasdi, a o'zi baland. Was degan so'z tasvirlamayapman. Ya'ni описываю слово was here. Verb was. I'm describing it. And here I can add my little adverb. I may put something like it was noticeably higher. And now the structure changes a little bit. So what happens now? All right, I have my noun, it. I have my verb, was. Then I have an adverb, and I have adjective. My adjective describes my it, and my adverb here describes the word higher. It adds more information for my adjective here. Usually only in these cases, you will use adverbs to describe or give more information about adjectives. Не просто higher, oddiy balandroq emasdi, ancha balandroq. Ko'rinarli darajada balandroq. Намного выше. Now here you gotta be careful. A lot of adverbs you use to describe adjectives when comparing don't have this li. They're exceptions. For example, it was far higher or it was much lower. Words far and much are adverbs here. They describe their adjectives that they come before. You shouldn't worry about this too much. There'll be a separate video explaining the language we use for comparisons. Now, in the same topic, you'll find quiz questions where you can practice accurately using adjectives and adverbs in IELTS Writing Task 1.